It can't be bargained with. It can't be reasoned with. It doesn't feel pity or remorse or fear. And it absolutely will not stop. Ever. Until you are dead.
Welcome back to Thinking Critical. This is Wes, and we've had some shakeups over here at DC Comics, and it feels like, much like the rest of the entertainment industry, the comic industry is being affected greatly by the disappointing rollout of HBO Max and Warner Media's decision to basically go all in and put all their chips behind their new streaming service that did not launch very well. And I kind of understand Warner Media's thinking on this. They don't know when movie theaters are really going to open up nationwide, and they certainly don't know, even when that does happen, how willing people are going to be to go into movie theaters and basically get their return on investment for making all these big blockbuster movies, specifically the ones we're thinking of are, Wonder Woman 1984. What do we got? Suicide Squad coming up. We've got a lot of big DC movies, and it is obviously having a trickle-down effect to DC Comics as a comics division. And, we're seeing some new properties going over to the Arrowverse, the HBO Max streaming service. And we're going to try and make sense of it today. And obviously here with me is El Percherino himself, the Poobah of comics. Perch, how you doing?
I'm doing okay. Thanks for having me on. And it's just amazing times we live in right now.
It is an amazing time. Before we get into these details, and I've got a great quote to open this one up, I do want to say, if you haven't subscribed to the channel, what are you thinking? Today is the day to subscribe. It's Christmas, people. The season, people. You want the joy of thinking critical, or some people have started calling me thinking cynical in your life. I guarantee you that. Hit the bell for notifications. Give us a thumbs up if you enjoy this video. Give us a thumbs down if you don't. Either way, we want to hear from you and your thoughts on all the effects of HBO Max are having on DC Comics properties, and all that noise right there in the video or the comments section. Now, there was a great quote, and I think this probably upset a lot of people, but I completely get it. Christopher Nolan, probably the best writer or director in Hollywood right now. Some of our industry's biggest filmmakers and most important movie stars went to bed the night before thinking they were working for the greatest movie studio and woke up to find out they were working for the worst streaming service.
Ouch.
It was just a beautiful quote. It's so loaded. This is why this man gets me. He's as cynical as I am. He's also thinking cynical. And you could definitely twist this around. You could say some of the comic book industry's biggest writers and artists went to bed thinking they were working on the greatest comic book company in the world with the greatest character set, and woke up to realize they were just there to promote the world's worst streaming service. Or you could think of it from my perspective. Some of us readers and fans, or even YouTubers, went to bed thinking we were covering or reading the greatest comic book legacy of characters with the greatest history and the greatest collection current collection of writing and art talent, and woke up to find out that we were just supporting, via money, by the way, marketing material for the worst streaming platform.
Yeah, I think, I mean, watching this whole thing evolve has been such a trip over the last several months. And I get completely why Warner Media is doing this. Like you, it's probably the right play for them. I mean, you got to play the cards you're dealt. And they don't know what's going on in the market. They don't know when theaters are opening up. They do know that a lot of their revenue and their drivers are going to be compared to Netflix and other things. You got to get in there and play ball. And I get why they're doing what they're doing completely. It doesn't necessarily taste good. I mean, that's the thing. I think that goes to the comics as well. We've done a lot of videos on this. We've done many videos talking about no, DC's not shutting down. And I think some people have responded sometimes in the comments like, oh, you guys are just way too positive. Everything's going to be great, huh? It's like, well, wait a minute. We didn't say that. We said it's not shutting down. Those are two different things.
Yeah, so like we mentioned now, there is no more free sign up. You can't get the free 2 weeks now that you're going to get Wonder Woman 84 and all the big movies that aren't going to be released solely in movie theaters coming up. But they are coming to HBO Max, and here you can see the promotional material. I think HBO Max has an identity crisis. I don't know about you, Perch, but when I was a kid, there were times when my parents had HBO Max.
Yeah.
And when they were going to watch HBO at night, you know what they did?
Yeah.
They sent me out of the room.
Yeah, they sent me to bed. So
because it wasn't considered like family inclusive entertainment. Yet they want the family inclusive numbers of like a Disney Plus, or even if you look at Netflix.
Yeah.
They have a lot of kids programming in there. And they also have the premium pricing that you would expect. Like HBO was always the really expensive a channel and stuff like that. So they decided they're going to take all these, Wonder Woman you would have thought would have made, $800 million to $1 billion, and some of these other properties, put them on HBO Max to get the subscription numbers up. I don't know. Do you think they're going to be successful?
Yeah, I do. I do think that they're going to be people sign
Disney Plus successful.
No, they're not going to be Disney Plus successful. I think that they're doing one thing I think better than Disney. Disney did Mulan, and they had the expensive, you can buy into Mulan.
$30.
Yeah, $30 on top of your streaming price. And a lot of people will look at this and go, okay, Wonder Woman, $14.99 a month. I can watch it a bunch of times with my family. That's cheaper than it would have been going to the theaters. I'll sign up for that. And so I think you will get that. You're dead right on the brand, though. I mean, HBO, it has that perception. They do have this problem with HBO Max and just kind of who they are, and that is going to be a bit of a barrier. You notice in a lot of their advertisements, they try and put the cartoon stuff front and center. And I think they're going to try and continue to change the way people look at things. But I think people will sign up for this. I think that their play of look, we don't, it will be several months before movie theaters are open, and here's some big time movies that you've heard of. And the funny part about HBO Max, because I'm definitely a member of this service, their UI, using it is terrible. Like, they have a ton of content. It is, if they need to do one thing, it's redesign their entire kind of front page and how that thing works, because it is
Apple TV Plus.
Yeah, it's rough.
Like bad. That's terrible.
It is. It's like all the lessons Netflix has learned and adapted over the last 10 years. HBO Max has learned none of those. It's just an awful interface. But I think that they have a shot. I think that it will definitely put them into a place where they're going to play with Netflix and play with Disney Plus, and not they exceed out of the Apple TV and the Hulu and some of those kind of services, Amazon Prime. I think that it's setting them up to, have some content people will pay for. That's still a very high price point, though.
Yeah, they're certainly making a go of it. And if they're willing to sacrifice the profits of Wonder Woman 1984, which are just a tad under expected profits for that, or I'm sorry, not profits, revenues, Wonder Woman 1984 would be just a tad under about 60-70% of the entire comic book industry.
Right.
Certainly more than all of DC Comics would have generated.
Yep.
It's not surprising that they're sacrificing even the reputation and legacy of DC Comics as a publishing division to promote this vehicle. Sure.
And I think this is where the comics are marketing. And if you think about AT&T and you think about these other services, it again goes back to the biggest reason I was skeptical. And in addition to just hearing that contracts were being signed for multi-year deals, the biggest reason I didn't think DC Comics was ending in the summer is because it's very cheap marketing for them. They are promotional materials for them. It is a very easy way to do it. But it does mean that the comics are they're designed to serve this. They're designed to serve HBO Max. So every comic needs to have some connection, some tie into a movie. If it doesn't, then questions will be asked. Why are you doing this? What is the point? Why are you making this comic if there's no plans to have it connect into HBO Max and shows somewhere at some point? And those comics are going to get killed. And and in terms of the quality of those comics, the number one goal is going to be, hey, does this create a character or IP or something that's going to promote one of our movies? That's the number one goal. That the number one goal is not, hey, is this a good story? That is not in the top three.
Yeah, it's disappointing that it's kind of turned this way for DC and Marvel. They're no longer, the big fish in a small pond as far as comic book publishing. They're both, and have been for quite a while, very small parts of an IP system belonging to some big publishers of all kinds of entertainment. And so they're no longer, the priority isn't to create the best comic book stories. It's to go and serve their corporate masters. And obviously they're kind of get lost in the shuffle. And, you think about Superman, you would have been front and center as the brand, Batman front and center of the brand, Spider-Man front and center, like as the brand, but they're not really the brand anymore. They're just supporting characters.
Yeah, they're just parts of different properties, and it's what they think they're going to be able to do. And keep in mind, it's worth saying this. This does not mean we're going to get nothing but crap stories. There will be some good stories that will come out. Absolutely. In fact, they still want to have good movies that are going to generate a lot of money and get people excited and everything else. And so there will be good stories that will lead into those movies. It's just the goal is to get the good story in the movie, and then you back into the comic. And so, when we look at DC in March, I am 100% sure that there's going to be some comics in there that are going to be good. The creators are going to put out something entertaining and unique and all the rest. But I think people were looking at this as in a or B situation. Either A, all the comics are going to shut down in 3 months, or B, hey, all the comics are going to get amazing creators we all love to tell amazing stories. And the answer is we can get none of those.
It feels like the Big Bang Theory and other, like the corporate takeover of geek culture.
Sure.
And it's like we like all the stuff that you like, but we're not going to give it to you in the manner that you like. We're not going to prioritize you because you're too small of a market of who we're trying to reach. So you took our stuff, and then we're just like sitting in the corner and like just hoping some of it doesn't suck.
Yeah, yeah, it's a grim way to look at it, but you're not wrong. And it is that kind of I use the phrase on your Saturday show. It's the monkey's paw effect. It's like a lot of us. I remember reading these comics, going, "Man, I'd love to see this in a movie someday. I would love to see a show on this. It'd be so cool to see my characters that I love up on the big screen. It'd be awesome." Well, we're getting that, but not quite what we hoped.
Well, Thinking Cynical calls it the gentrification of geek culture.
Oh, there you go. I think that's a perfectly good phrase.
They're taking our stuff, they're sprucing it up, and telling us to get the hell out.
Yeah, it is. What's funny too is it's a lot of the comics that have made people the angriest or the craziest over the last 5 years or so, the ones that go very far down a different culture vein. Those won't survive either. And when you're talking about comic books that are going to support a movie platform like this, it's homogenized is the word. Gentrification is a great word. It's very, very vanilla. Very here's some stuff that's not really going to move the needle much any direction, and that's what we've got. So it's the smoothing out of the comic industry, which who knows? What's funny is when they do this stuff, it tends to appeal to no one in the long run, but we'll see.
Interesting that you just brought that. That's a perfect segue to one of the first projects we're going to talk about. We know about Wonder Girl and some of that stuff, but now we do have speaking of vanilla characters and really in the end, who does it really appeal to? We've got Ava DuVernay, who really bombed big time with A Wrinkle in Time. I think they ended up losing a lot of money.
Mm-hmm.
Even with Oprah on their cast.
Yeah, I didn't funny with Oprah. I mean,
like the Q rating on Oprah is so enormous. You'd think she'd bring people in, but she bombed hard. She's going to be doing New Gods, and now she's producing Arrow in the Arrowverse. Basically, the Naomi character Brian Michael Bendis created, basically the same character he's been creating for 8 years now, but in DC Comics.
Yeah, I mean, it feels like the funny part about all these comics is that the pitch all sounds so generic. It's hey, it's a girl and she's got mysterious parentage and she wants to learn about it and discover she has powers, and how does she fit in the world with these amazing powers while trying to figure out her parents? I mean, I just described like 50 movies that have come out over the last 20 years. It's weird to me that I mean, aren't we supposed to be defying expectations? Aren't we supposed to be getting something new and different that we haven't seen a million times before? So many of these projects feel like very, very tired reruns. And I mean, I'm not surprised that we're doing something with Naomi, sure. But I don't know. Will this move the needle to anything? And forget the comics. Will this be a show people will watch? I mean, you could, yeah.
It's a Netflixification of everything. When you think about Netflix, they're not creating shows or properties for audiences in America. They're creating stuff for everybody worldwide.
Sure.
So it has to be accessible to everybody worldwide. I live in the Philippines. My wife, English is probably her fourth language. Mm-hmm. She gets like physical humor and stuff like that. She doesn't always get American satire. She certainly doesn't always get dark humor. So if you were creating a show on Netflix that you wanted to maybe translate over into other markets that weren't English speaking first, like you got to choose the kind of humor and the kind of writing that you use.
Absolutely. I mean, it is, when you try to appeal to everyone, you tend to appeal to no one, or you just get very kind of safe shows. And Netflix has been successful with this worldwide model of it's not really a good show, but you want something to watch and it's there. So I might as well watch these episodes because why not? The funny part is I don't know if you got suddenly HBO Max entering the picture and they've made all indications they're going to have a new series out like every week and they're going to try and get on that same pace. There comes a point where it's like you just don't have time to watch all these shows. The lockdown will end at some point and people have to like leave the house. And so, I don't know that chasing that strategy completely is going to work out for them, but who knows? There's a lot of superhero content coming. Remember when you were a kid and you wanted all these superhero movies and all this superhero stuff to be on TV? Well, buckle up. We're doing that.
Buckle up, Buttercup. It's coming. We're getting a Plastic Man movie. Something I never would have expected. I think Plastic Man's a great character. I specifically liked recently Jeff Lemire's take on the character in The Terrifics. But they're going to make a female-centric Plastic Woman?
I mean, you got to compete with Miss Marvel somehow. I mean, that's a property that's worldwide.
Isn't this Elastigirl?
Sure, yeah. I don't know. What are you going to do with this? I don't know.
The good news is apparently Pam Lifford and Warner Media were not offended or even they didn't bat an eye with Gail Simone's little controversy when she was writing Plastic Man and we had the Plastic Man as a woman transgender outrage.
I don't think anybody pays attention to any of that Twitter stuff.
So I don't know.
It's strange times. It is. Have confidence. There will still be DC Comics on the show a year from now, but they're going to be.
What do you say when you see something like this? It is what it is.
It is what it is. It's a gentrification of the comic industry. I think that's well said. Yep. Yikes.
So. All right, Perch, I think we've covered it pretty well. There's certainly a lot more ground to cover on this, and we've got a few more angles we'll go at it. But, this is the first time kind of really talking about it, just the two of us. HBO Max is not only shaking up the entertainment industry, the TV industry, it's definitely shaking up the comic industry, I think, for the worse. Obviously, hey, I could be wrong. You gotta. I guess I'm going to have to read a few of them. We do have a Naomi and a Plastic Man sort of show coming to CW in movies. I don't know. You got anything else left to say on this about the gentrification of geek culture?
I just this is the new normal for comics. There you go. So we'll talk about this much more. I'm sure it'll be interesting to watch this all unfold. Keeping comics on the shelves. These comics, sure.
I got to ask you before we go. Yeah. How are your spirits? I'm frustrated. You seem to be handling it much better than I.
It's at this point there's some amusement to this show. So I'm sure when these things start actually hitting the shelves, I mean, my comic shop is likely to be open in March when some of this stuff starts rolling out. I'll probably have a different view at that point.
Beautiful. Well, we're definitely going to be talking about it Saturday. I don't know if you're going to be able to join us, but you will be hearing this topic directly on Saturday on the Comics Aficionados, now that we have all the information or some of the information about the creative teams coming up. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a like. I would appreciate it very much. It helps us attract more views for the channel. Subscribe for future commentary, comic book news, and reviews. And don't forget to ring the bell for notifications. If you want to talk comics, movies, and much, much more, you can follow me on Twitter at Wes_from_TC. With that, Salamat Po, and I'm out.